Long Island. Used to be the home of Gentleman Jerry Cooney, my longtime partner on Sirius XM Radio. Huntington, Long Island, New York, home of the Paramount Theater, where Joe DeGuardia has run at least 4 dozen boxing shows. I've seen my buddy Tracy Morgan there and so many others. Huntington, Long Island, home and studio of my producer tonight, Marvelous Marcello. He produces Randy's Ringside, our new version, every Tuesday night, right from the studios of Marvelous Marcello. And not only do we have the new show, we've got all of you guys watching right now on Facebook, and we're going to be putting Randy's Ringside on YouTube, and that'll be starting tomorrow, so you could watch tonight's fights. And what's going to be great about tonight's show, I'm giving you a list of upcoming fights throughout this summer. And when I say throughout the summer doesn't end in August 20th, 21st, and we've got fights right up until then. So with no further ado, let me just get my coffee here.
You're backwards, Commish. We can't see the front.
And we got my lollipop. Brand new one. Thanks, John Barbello, for that whole stash of red lollipops. Let me tell you, this week, July 9th, it's going to start the big summer of boxing. It's going to be taking place at the Alamodome in San Antonio, Texas. It's going to be the featherweight championship of the world between Mark Magsayo and Ray Vargas, the former 122-pound champion. Now Magsayo, who's 24-0 with 16 knockouts, comes from the Philippines. You saw him earlier in the year. It was early in January. He fought Gary Once-A-Year Russell, the outstanding featherweight titleist, who basically does fight once a year, then has more or less no interest in fighting again. Man, this guy could go on forever fighting like that. Well, Gary Russell suffered an injury in the fight to his shoulder. He really wasn't the same Gary Russell. He lost the fight. Mark Magsayo became the featherweight champ of the world. He is guided by the legendary Manny Pacquiao. As far as Ray Vargas, the guy comes from Mexico. He's 35-0 with 22 knockouts, but he had to take some time off because he suffered a pretty tough injury. He suffered a broken leg, a compound fracture. That's when the bone comes through the skin. And I wasn't even sure that he would be walking again, but he rehabbed it and got right back in the gym. And he's had a couple of comeback fights. He won them. He's 35-0, 22 knockouts. Remember, he's moving up in weight, basically knows the boxing world as a 122-pounder and as a 118-pounder. Now he's going to be going up against the world's best featherweight, Mark Magsayo, 24-0 against Ray Vargas, 35-0 for the WBC Featherweight Championship of the World. This Saturday, it's going to be at the Alamodome in San Antonio, Texas, seen on Showtime. Let's move ahead to the following week because there is another, it's an action fight. It's not a great fight. It's going to be basically a heavyweight slobber knocker. It's going to be taking place at the O2 Arena, and you could watch it on DAZN. It's Derek Chisora, who's 32-12 with 23 knockouts, going up against just twice beaten Kubrat Pulev of Bulgaria, who's 29-2 with 14 knockouts. The thing is, Chisora is 38, Pulev is 41. This can't be anything other than a heavyweight slobber knocker. I don't want to miss it. July 9th on DAZN. Now, on July 16th, we start getting into some terrific fights. This one's going to be in Los Angeles, California, and it's going to feature Ryan Garcia, 22-0, against Javier Fortuna. Ryan, 22-0 with 18 knockouts. Fortuna, 37-3-1 with 26 knockouts. This one, a lightweight battle. And you know what? The winner, more than likely, is going to move ahead into a title fight. Ryan Garcia says, should that title fight come about, who does he want? He is calling out Gervonta Davis. In that one, let's see what happens first. Should he get past Javier Fortuna? Let's move ahead now to July 30th at the Barclays Center. I'm going to be sitting ringside with gentleman Jerry Cooney. It's going to be Gary Antoine Russell against Francis Barthelemy. Now, Barthelemy is the former 130-pound champion, 135-pound champion. He is now moving up to 140. Barthelemy is 29-1-1. His only loss came against Terrence Crawford. And Gary Antoine Russell, one of the younger brothers of Gary Once-A-Year Russell, Gary Antoine Russell is 15-0 with 15 knockouts. Yes, you heard that right. 15 knockouts, 15 victories, 15 fights, 15-0. Gary Antoine Russell, I think this guy is going to be the best of all the Russells. Gary Antoine Russell, and as good as Francis Barthelemy is, you're going to see just how good Gary Antoine Russell is. But that is not even the main event. The main event happens to be Danny Garcia, 36-3 with 21 knockouts against Jose Benavidez, who's 27-1-1, 18 knockouts. His only loss, that one loss there, that one came against Terrence Crawford. 27-1-1 with 18 knockouts. Danny Garcia against Jose Benavidez, with Francis Barthelemy against Danny Garcia in the main event. And that card can be seen on Showtime on July 30th. Now, moving ahead to August 6th, it's going to be Virgil Ortiz, who's 18-0 with 18 knockouts. He is one of the two guys who is looking to take over the welterweight titles from either Errol Spence or Terrence Crawford. Virgil Ortiz, again, 18-0 with 18 knockouts, going up against unbeaten but light-hitting Michael McKinstry, 22-0 with just 2 knockouts. And again, I said that Virgil Ortiz is one of the guys who's looking to take over. The other one is Gerard Ennis, Boots Ennis, out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. But on August 6th, it's going to be Virgil Ortiz against Michael McKinstry. And I do believe on that card, I think she is being penciled in now, one of the best females on the planet, Sinisa Estrada, I believe, is going to be fighting on that card. Nothing firmed up yet. August 13th in Lost Wages, Nevada, a fight that will be seen on ESPN+. It's going to be Teofimo Lopez, who's 16-1, 12 knockouts, making his very first start since he lost his title to George Kambosos. There was an injury. He needed some rest. There's a lot going on in the life of Teofimo Lopez. So we'll see what he's got, if he's going to be the same vicious animal that he had been before. But he's going up against a guy who's 34-1-1, not known as a big puncher. The guy's name is Pedro Campa. And we'll see what he brings to the table. We'll see what Teofimo Lopez has in the tank. This is 140 pounds. And I'm hoping that Teofimo Lopez, even if he destroys Campa early, takes another fight, because he's been saying that he wants the best at 140 pounds. I'm not sure that he's there yet. Let's see what happens when he faces Pedro Campa. Now, August 20th in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. It's going to be the heavyweight championship of the world for the unified heavyweight championship. It's going to be Alexander Usyk, who's 19-0, against Anthony Joshua, who's 24-2, 22 knockouts, the former heavyweight champ, Anthony Joshua. What do you think about this fight? You know, Alexander Usyk from Ukraine has been more or less on the front lines defending Ukraine against the murderous attacks of Vladimir Putin's country, Russia. But the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, has said to Usyk, look, you could do us a lot more good fighting in the ring and bringing attention to Ukraine rather than here on the front lines. Certainly, if you want, you win. Whatever happens in the fight, you come back home. But you could do us a lot more good out there bringing attention to your country. And he realized that, and he heard that, and he got back in the gym. He's 19-0, 13 knockouts against Anthony Joshua, again, 24-2 with 22 knockouts. You know, Usyk hasn't been doing much talking. He's not one of these guys who says a lot, who disses his opponent or anything else. He comes to fight. And when you think about Usyk, yes, he was the former cruiserweight champion. But I hear so many people saying, well, isn't he the little heavyweight champion? There's nothing little about Alexander Usyk. The guy is about 6'4". He goes 222 pounds. Think about it. Muhammad Ali was about 6'4", and his top weight was not 220 pounds. It was under that. Sonny Liston went about 6'2", 2.5, under 220 pounds. How about Evander Holyfield? You think about Evander Holyfield as a small heavyweight. He was the size of Sonny Liston, and he too went about 212 to 215 pounds. No, Alexander Usyk is not a small heavyweight. He's only small when you compare him to some of these guys like Joshua, who's 6'6", with just a mountainous structure. I mean, chiseled black granite. That's what he is. But you saw their first fight. And Alexander Usyk absolutely out-hustled Anthony Joshua. Can he do it again? I don't know that Anthony Joshua has the mindset of a smart fighter. He's got everything going for him. He's big, he's strong, he's fast, he's hard-hitting. But I just don't think he has the IQ of a brilliant fighter. I don't think he can adapt. I think that Alexander Usyk, on the other hand, is a very bright fighter.
Hey, Randy, we got a comment on just what you're talking about right now. Baker in the comments says he thinks it's time for Anthony Joshua, and he thinks it's time's up for Anthony Joshua because he says in tough fights he can't seem to push through. Your thoughts, Commish? Do you think Anthony Joshua is going to be able to push through?
I think we're going to find out all about Anthony Joshua there. And Baker, guys from Greeley, Colorado, he knows and loves his boxing, and it's a great question because many people are asking that question about Anthony Joshua. Is he tough enough if he gets hurt? I will tell you, he did show me a lot about his toughness a number of years ago when he got dropped by Vladimir Klitschko. And when he got dropped, he got hurt. And I thought that was it. He wasn't getting up. Not only did he get up, he fought back with a vengeance, and he dropped Klitschko. He stopped Klitschko. So can Anthony Joshua go down and get up? Look, he got dropped against Andy Ruiz, and he lost the fight. He was totally mentally not prepared for that fight. He felt like a 6'6" mountain of a man against a 6'3" fat guy. And that's how he took the fight. Remember, Andy Ruiz, in that fight in 2019, took it on last-second notice. And yet he went in out of shape and still beat Anthony Joshua. These are some of the questions that people have about Anthony Joshua. He is prone to mental letdowns. I know he's not going to have that against Usyk, but I think this is going to be a very hard 12 rounds. I think it's going to be as hard, if not harder, than the first fight. One of my other questions is not so much about Joshua, but what kind of baggage mentally is Alexander Usyk going to take into the fight? You got to remember, his country is fighting for their lives. They are dying by the hundreds per day. That's what's going on over there. Is he going to take that into the ring and use it to make him stronger? Or is he going to take that into the ring and be really affected by it and not be the fighter that he was the first time when he fought Anthony Joshua? A lot of questions to be answered. This one on August 20th in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, and we're going to be able to watch that one. I'll have a little bit more information for you. It is going to be on pay-per-view, and I got to tell you, no matter what they charge for this one, fight fans got to get that fight. Now, 2 weeks later, on September 4th, in Los Angeles, California, it's going to be, we talked about him a few moments ago, Andy Ruiz, who's 34-2 with 22 knockouts, going up against Luis King Kong Ortiz, 33-2 with 28 knockouts. Ortiz, those two losses both came by knockout against Deontay Wilder. King Kong Ortiz is anywhere from 43 years old. He might even be as old as about 53. Nobody knows. He claims 43. But any fighter who's getting up in age and is perhaps hiding his age will always give you the lower number. So he is at least 43, probably around 45, 46, and perhaps as old as maybe a little bit over 50 years old. But he's still in terrific shape. He's been winning fights. So it's 33-2 Luis Ortiz against Andy Ruiz. And if the pictures I'm seeing recently are real, then I'm very impressed with what I'm seeing from Andy Ruiz. Andy looks to be in the best shape I have ever seen him. And sometimes I think they're even putting out pictures of him from a couple of years ago when he's really wearing a lot of what we call chunk on the trunk. I don't think this time that's going to be the case. Even when he won his last fight, Andy Ruiz, when he got dropped and hurt by Chris the Nipple Arreola, I got to tell you something. Andy Ruiz was a little bit out of shape for that fight. I think he's realizing that he can still win this heavyweight championship of the world and make tens of millions of dollars. Let's see what happens. On September 4th in Los Angeles, the fight will be on Fox pay-per-view. Andy Ruiz against Luis King Kong Ortiz. Certainly if Andy Ruiz comes in tip-top shape, I see no way that Ortiz can win the fight.
Hey, Randy, going to jump in here. Baker again coming in, telling us that he's intrigued with the fight, but he also thinks that Ortiz, despite his age, his power still makes him one hell of a threat in the division. What do you think?
I think Luis Ortiz, certainly, anybody he nails, he's a southpaw. And he's got a very hard left cross. And his right hook is excellent. His chin is also excellent. Remember, his two losses came against Deontay Wilder. I just don't think that with what we've seen from Ortiz, if we see the best of Ruiz, if we see Ruiz who fought Chris Arreola, I think anything can happen in the fight. Because I think in real good shape, Andy Ruiz is going to be able to take it down the stretch. And maybe down the stretch, stop Ortiz. But if Andy Ruiz is not in tip-top shape, I think Ortiz is going to try to muscle him around, and we know he can do that. And I would not discount Luis Ortiz winning the fight. But let's see what kind of shape Andy Ruiz is in. We're not going to find out on fight night. We're going to find out probably sometime in August what kind of shape he's in. Maybe even early August, late July. If I see that he's in the shape that I think he's in, I think Andy Ruiz wins it one-sidedly. And keep those cards and letters coming. You guys are lighting up the screen here. And keep them coming. Now, September 10th at the O2 Arena in the United Kingdom. I think this is going to be the biggest female fight card boxing's ever seen. Because there are two fights here, two big-name fights. One is Clarissa Shields against Savannah Marshall. The other one is Michaela Mayer against Aliciabaumgartner. And the Baumgartner-Michaela Mayer fight, who, Baker guys, I know that you've got a heartthrob for Michaela Mayer, but you got to get in line. There's a lot of guys out there who have the Michaela Mayer posters above their beds. So Baker, you gotta get in line, buddy. Um, Although I do know her, and we put some words in her ear about you, so I think even though you might be in line, you might be within the top 3 or 4 in line. But Michaela, undefeated, 17 fights, 5 knockouts. I think she's becoming more of a puncher now than she was early on. She knows what she's doing in there. Excellent condition. Baumgartner, you saw her recently. She has 7 knockouts in 13 fights. She's 12-1. Aliciabaumgartner, this one is going to be for the 130-pound championship. Now, the Savannah Marshall fight against Clarissa Shields. Savannah Marshall is the only woman ever to beat Clarissa Shields in the amateurs. And she will not let Clarissa Shields forget that. And since they've turned pro, they've each had 12 fights. They each have won 12 fights. But here's the difference. Clarissa Shields has knocked out 2 opponents. Savannah Marshall, who's taller, bigger, and I think physically stronger, she has knocked out 10 of those 12 opponents. She said she plans on doing the same thing to Clarissa Shields. I can't wait for the fight. It's going to be the O2 Arena. Not sure what network that's going to be, whether that is going to be on DAZN or where you're going to see it, but I know we will be able to see it, and I'll be letting you know very soon where we can watch the fight. Then on September 17th.
Wait, Randy, you got one more fight.
What?
You got one more fight on the September 10th. It's Michaela and Michaela.
No, we just did that, Michaela.
We did. Fight. We did. We spoke about them.
Yeah.
Both of them. I'm sorry.
There we go. So again, Clarissa Shields against Savannah Marshall and Michaela Mayer against Aliciabaumgartner.
I think it's just because I'm not used to seeing such a big fight card with female fighters. I think you're absolutely right. This is one hell of a fight card. I've never seen it like this.
Yeah, and it's going to attract worldwide attention because Savannah Marshall comes from over in the UK, and Clarissa and Michaela come from over here, and Alicia from over in the UK, and because they are world titleists and just so popular now as female boxing is on the rise, I think it's going to be an incredible card. Remember, back in April, we had the biggest female fight ever when at Madison Square Garden. Katie Taylor, in a very close fight, very tough fight, one of the fights of the year, beat Amanda Serrano. So this one, we saw what it did. It packed Madison Square Garden, the Katie Taylor-Amanda Serrano fight. I am wondering if the O2 Arena is also going to be sold out on September 10th. Let's move on because that's on September 10th. A week later, in the place I call Lost Wages, Nevada, it's going to be a fight seen on DAZN. And this, from what I understand, is going to be DAZN pay-per-view. I am looking to be ringside for the fight. It is one of the biggest fights of the year. Canelo Alvarez, 57-2-2 with 39 knockouts in a trilogy fight against Gennady Golovkin. They call him Triple G. 42-1-1. 37 knockouts in his 42 victories. The one loss on Triple G's record came to Canelo Alvarez. The one draw came against Canelo Alvarez. Now, in their first fight, that was the draw. That was back in September of 2017. Can't believe it was 5 years ago. That fight was a draw, and quite frankly, I was there for that fight. I thought Triple G pulled it out close. But there was no question in my mind when the final bell rung that Triple G was the winner. And the second was a majority decision win for Canelo Alvarez. And once again, I had, and I wasn't alone, many people had Triple G winning the fight. This went the other way, Canelo Alvarez. So you could actually say that in their first two fights, Triple G could very well, instead of being 42 1-1, he could be 44-0. And instead of 57 2-2, Canelo Alvarez could be make it 56 1-1. I mean, Canelo Alvarez, there's no question about it, a great fighter. He challenges himself. You've seen what he's done when he lost to Dmitry Bivol, but before that, he had moved up. He took the light heavyweight title, knocking out Sergey Kovalev. And the only thing is, Canelo Alvarez now is in his early 30s. He's in his prime. Triple G is 40 years old. Is he in great shape? Absolutely. He's always in great shape. And he's in better shape than most other athletes who are 40 years old. Most other athletes who are 10 years younger. But I can't see Canelo Alvarez being any better for the third fight than he was for the first two. I don't really think he's lost anything, but I think that Canelo Alvarez has gotten a bit better. Yeah, he lost to Bivol, who was bigger and heavier and stronger. I almost have to wipe that fight out. I got to wipe that fight out because his only two losses, Canelo, have been to Bivol. And then years ago, back around 2013-14, something like that, he lost a decision to Floyd Mayweather. That was it. And ever since that time, he's done nothing but win. He's won titles at 154, 160, 68, 175, dropped down, continued to defend his title. And I don't want to hear anybody say that he hasn't fought anybody at 168. He certainly has. He's fought other title holders. He fought Caleb Plant, who had several of the belts. He fought a lot of top guys, and he beat them rather easily. Triple G is going to be as strong as Triple G has ever been because he struggles a little bit to make 160 pounds this time, and he did look good in his last fight when he knocked out former world champion, and actually he was a current world champion, Ryoto Murata, a former gold medalist for Japan, and he got in a shootout with Murata and blasted him, stopped him. So I think that Triple G, moving up a few more pounds, not having to kill himself, that can make a big difference here. I think it's going to be another decision fight. And quite frankly, it is not going to surprise me. I do expect Canelo to win the fight, but it will not surprise me if you hear the winner and new 168-pound champion is going to be Triple G. We don't know yet. This one is on September 17th. You'll see it on DAZN pay-per-view. I want to take a look at both guys, have my spies in both camps. Let me know what they think before I go making my official pick. But I will tell you, I think it is going to be one of the fights of the year. I want to just get away from boxing for a moment here because, we jump on here, we have fun, we enjoy each other's company. I enjoy taking a look and seeing who is on here with me, and you're all fight fans, but you're all Americans. You're all humans. And we've seen way too much of shootings. Too many people, and I talked about this last night with you guys. Some of you were on, but since I was on last night, when I was on, they had not apprehended the killer yet. But we knew that was going to happen. What drives these people to do something as horrific as they did? Nobody knows. But the fact is, you think that this killer who was perched up on the rooftop shooting down, do you think he's the only one left out there now? Do you think that he was the only one capable of doing this? I think that this gave more sickos just like this nut job an idea how they could get away with it at maybe something later in the summer. Who knows? Labor Day parade. Maybe when school is starting in a lot of areas, walking in, waiting for school buses to arrive, whatever. The fact is, nobody should have a gun. And the politicians who are fighting for it, pointing out our Second Amendment. Come on, make some sense, people. I've already banned a couple of people from Facebook because they are proposing, they say that every American should have a gun. There's no question about it. And they are going to go out in their neighborhoods and get a petition signed. I don't even want to see that. Because can you picture, let's just picture, you go into a packed movie theater, which right now you're not getting packed movie theaters, but let's say you're in a restaurant. You could be in a packed movie theater then, because once down the road they will be packed. You're sitting there in the dark, and some nut job just like this walks in with an assault rifle. And if the assault rifles are banned, that's not going to stop the killings. He could have any kind of other rifle with him. He could have handguns, repeaters. Just keep pulling a trigger. So the shooting starts, and he's randomly picking people off in a movie theater. You're a gun toter. You pull out your weapon. Your neighbors with you all pull out their weapons. And you see other people with their weapons. And you think, and one of the guys just shoots somebody that he thought was the shooter. The lights are still out. You don't see who's shooting. And the shots start. Now people are shooting each other because everybody's got a gun. And now you see everybody shooting. You don't know who the shooter is. And he calmly walks out of the theater. It is the craziest thing in the world to think that everybody should have a gun. It is nuts. The Second Amendment, which says that Americans have a right to bear arms, that wasn't written 3 weeks ago. That was written 250 years ago, when this was a beginning lawless country. There was no internet. There was no telephone. There were no cars. There were no airplanes. There's a million rules about how we handle all of them, what we can do on the internet and not do, what we can say and put out there via social media. Well, that's not in the amendments, but the Second Amendment was written when this was a beginning lawless country, and it was dropped in there that we can have handguns. We can have guns. So here it is, 250 years later. Some of these people on Facebook are saying, we all should have guns. I'm carrying one now. My husband's carrying one now. You nut jobs. You're going to wind up shooting each other. That's what you're going to wind up doing. Nobody should have a gun. Here's who should have a gun. Here's who should have a gun. The police should have a gun. The militia. They all should have guns. Security guards, absolutely trained, and I'm talking about trained and thorough background checks on security guards, because now it's to the point where every single school needs to have armed guards. They need to have steel doors where somebody can't get in. They could walk in, but you can't get past that steel door. You got to go to security. You ain't getting past. You can't walk in the school. Nobody should have handguns. A couple people were shot in New York, I'm hearing today. The trains, the subways have become absolute death traps in New York because these nut jobs are carrying weapons onto the trains. Why? Because you're allowed to buy handguns. People who are watching here tonight, John Barbella, you are an ex-police officer. Robert Gallo watching tonight from Boston, you're a police officer. You guys should be carrying guns. You know how to use them. You're trained. You know when to pull them. You know how to use them. I could go to class and take shooting lessons. I actually like going down to the range. But if you want to go down the range, you rent the gun, you use it there, and you shoot at a target. When you leave, you do not leave with your weapon. Nobody should have a gun. And the law should be so stiff that if somebody is caught with a gun, they're going away for a while. It's going to scare you to even think about having a weapon. There is no way we belong having weapons. The only fighting I want to see is the fighting that I was just talking about in the ring. That's where the fighting should be done. But the weapons, and especially these weapons of mass destruction, where you could walk into a crowded area and just pull the trigger. It's basically a machine gun. Rat-a-tat-a-tat-a-tat. This nut job just pulled the trigger. He shot off something like 74 rounds. Today, a seventh person died. As of this morning, it was 6. A seventh has died. And over about 25 have been injured. My daughter lives right around there. My nephew, who joins us here on Randy's Ringside, David Bielenson from Courtside with Bielenson Tennis, who watches us many nights. He lives there in Highland Park. He has gone to these events. I'm glad he wasn't there, but you know what? My heart breaks for everybody who was even injured there. And the injuries were so severe. And the deaths, they say, people were absolutely blown up from the power of the weaponry that this nut job had. And yet the politicians sit back and they whisper to each other, it'll go away. And for a week or two, it will go away. But the gun lobbyists are way too strong, and they grease the palms of these politicians. Shame on them. They should be all getting together. I get it with the red side and the blue side and everything else. And if the red side says this, the blue side says something else. If the blue side says this, the red side says something else. It doesn't matter who's right or wrong. You're going to go against the other side. What we all know here, you could be red, you could be blue, we all know that nut jobs like this should not have a weapon. And as good as I really feel about sitting here talking to you every night about boxing, why does this have to happen every single week now? At a school, in a store, at a parade. It's going on, it's going on, and it's going on, and it's got to stop. And the politicians who say that every person should have a handgun, those people should be removed from office. You know, the only trigger you should be pulling is at the voting booth. And anybody who says any different than that, they should have the trigger of the voting booth pulled against them. They should be out of office. If you think that any American should have a gun other than a cop, other than somebody in the militia, other than somebody who's a security guard, a trained security guard, if you think anybody else should have a gun, you're absolutely crazy and you don't belong in office. Get rid of the guns. Everybody, thank you so much for watching tonight on Randy's Ringside. This stuff just drives me crazy, and I know it's got to drive you crazy too. Let's get rid of those guns so we can do nothing but talk boxing. I'll be back tomorrow on Randy's Ringside, 8:30 p.m. Remember, we're going to be putting this up on YouTube. When you see it again, click like, hit subscribe. And I want to thank Marvelous Marcello for the use of his studio tonight with the new Randy's Ringside and all the graphics and everything else that's going to be coming your way here on Randy's Ringside. See you tomorrow night, everybody. Be safe.